Okay. It's just going to be a bit of an angled one, I think. Sorry.
Right. So that's okay, isn't it? Yeah, that's fine. I'm happy to hold.
Okay, thank you. At least we're both on.
Yeah, exactly.
So, so we put this out on our social medias. As Neil said, we also put it out on our Dementia TLC social media, which has followers from mostly America, actually.
Oh, that's interesting.
So a lot of our questions have been about Mary Kondo and Netflix.
Oh yeah, of course. I'd love to talk about Mary Kondo. Is there anything specific, or do you want me to just kind of talk about her?
So maybe if you could just give us a brief of who she is and what she does for those that don't know. But we've had loads of questions about her folding. So
oh right, okay. Well, I'm happy to do that. So Mary Kondo is a professional organizer, and she has her own technique of organizing with clients. So she works through a home or a space in a very specific order, and that never changes per client. Now, the big thing that she's known for is the way she folds clothing, towels, sheets, etc. And that's her big thing. Now, she doesn't work for everyone. Most houses I go to will have her book. You know, the life-changing, the tidying up. Everyone has the book, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you might be able to still organize independently. So she's fabulous for our industry, and in the professional organization, there's quite a few KonMari professionals in our organization, and she's great. We love her in the industry, but she's not right for everybody. Sometimes you need to be more adaptable with certain clients and work in a different way. But if you're ready for her, and the folding is amazing if you're ready at that stage. And I show many of my clients, if they think they can maintain it, how to fold and how to organize in their wardrobes and drawers. Yeah.
And I suppose she's just good at sort of upping the reputation and sort of what you do, and just
it is, because obviously in America there's a much bigger understanding of what a professional organizer does, and I often find there's a real mystery about what people think a professional organizer does. So the other day I was with a client, and she told me that her dad is quite sentimental. He buys a lot of gifts for the children. And her mother had said, you've got to stop buying things because she has to pay someone to get rid of all her things. So there's a real mystery about kind of what we actually do. But she makes it very clear. And I thought the show that she did didn't really sort of tell me too much about what she does, because I know her technique. But for me, I found it really interesting to listen to the different clients that she was working with and understand their reasons and motivations for getting started and getting organized. So I really enjoyed that side of it. And there's going to be another show coming on very soon if anyone's interested. I've got no idea what it's going to be like, but it's with Reese Witherspoon. So she's not a decluttering expert. So we're all kind of like quite eager to see what's going to happen with that one. But for us, it's great. Anything that raises the profile of the industry and the valuable support that we can offer to the people who need it is great.
Good. And I think Eileen's just sort of hit the nail on the head, really. And she said she agrees that she had the book, read it, loved it.
Yeah.
Didn't put any of it into practice until you helped. So.
Yeah, and the thing I find with my clients is sometimes for some people it's just literally booking some time in and getting the job done, and working with someone else really helps you to feel motivated. And I guide people through the whole session, so they don't really have to think about, am I feeling overwhelmed, or what do I do next? Whereas if you're working on your own, it's a slightly different strategy. You have to work in bite-sized chunks. You have to make sure you don't get to the point where you feel overwhelmed when the place is looking much worse than when you started. And it does, it's kind of, we start and then it looks a lot worse, and then it gets back in order and everyone breathes a sigh of relief.
I've just noticed Rebecca has just come up with a great point, which I am going to come on to in a bit. But we obviously know that there are so many benefits to decluttering. The one thing that is coming up on our dementia side of it is just living independently for longer. But as Rebecca said, one of the things that is common throughout everything we've spoken about is people saying that they're ashamed or embarrassed to have their family and friends over. So that sort of is a no-go, but then also to invite somebody like you or somebody they don't know to come in. So even when they sort of realize that they might need some support or help, they're just too embarrassed. And that must be something that you get quite a lot.
We do completely, and I completely understand that. And the initial sort of consultation I have with a client over the phone, I talk about that, and I often say to them that they have made the biggest step by knowing that they need some support to make some kind of change to their environment, and that leads to other benefits in their life as well. But when I arrive on the doorstep, I know how they're feeling, because I have worked with so many people over the last 9 years that I anticipate that. So when I walk in, they kind of expect me to have my mouth wide open and go, wow, I have never seen anything like this. And usually they say, mine is the worst house you've ever seen, isn't it? And I kind of say no. And, you know, once they realize that I'm not shocked and I'm very focused on supporting them in the best way that's going to work for their lifestyle and the space that they have, they really start to relax. So some clients don't sleep the night before I arrive and gradually let me further and further into their home. So they're kind of quite guarded at first. But what it is when you work with a professional organizer, it's all about building trust. So I'm completely confidential. I don't arrive in a branded van. I'm not at all bossy. I try to be as good a listener as I possibly can. I'm very focused on the person, you know, why they're where they're at, what kind of strategy we're going to create moving forward. It's a very personal service, and trust builds up very quickly. So this isn't an analogy for everybody, but if you think that, you know, I'm pretty much going into someone's knicker drawer maybe in the first hour of arriving in their house, it's not always the case, but it's that level of personalization. So they might tell me things or show me things that they don't even show their closest friends because they're embarrassed to invite them over. So I get to understand all of the things that they're feeling about the space. They might not have invited anyone in their home for several years. And, you know, so the space is starting to have some big consequences on the way they're living. So we talk about that. And it's not just getting rid of things and reorganizing. There's a lot of time spent talking about how they're feeling about the things that they have and how they feel about getting rid of them. And, you know, so we can sort of really discuss all those obstacles to make sure that we're making a permanent solution rather than just shuffling things around or putting it all in another box and moving it to another space. So
yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yes, no, definitely. What are clients looking for? Obviously to declutter or tidy or whatever it is, but what are some of the other benefits, if you were, that sort of that are quite common to come out of with your clients?
Yeah, well, people call me for a whole variety of reasons. So sometimes I just go to people for maybe 1 or 2 sessions. They might be planning to move home, downsize home, and we're just creating a strategy. Some clients I've been working with on and off over the last 9 years. And sometimes some clients, it just takes a lot longer to achieve their goals because there's more things going on behind the scenes that we need to deal with. And working through each space helps those things come out and they start to feel a lot more comfortable. So I think the number one thing I think people are looking from me is someone who's patient, someone who's a good listener. You know, we chat about all kinds of things. I'm often with people for 4 or 5 hours, so we can chat about anything that they're thinking about or would value my opinion on. So it's all kinds of things. So I think they really value that, and they really value that they know that I am there fully focused on moving them forward to achieve their goals, and they can feel relaxed knowing that we are going to get there. I believe in them, and that's one of the biggest things that people tell me, is that they get to a point where they feel that it's not possible. And I come in and add that sense of belief and actually explain to them how we're going to get there.
I think that's what Eileen's just said, actually. She said she was really worried, but you put her at ease, like pretty much way. But I was just going to say, 'cause Eileen just came up with a really good point there, is that she said not only have you changed the way that she runs the home, but also her buying habits and how she views the stuff in her home, which I think is a different aspect that maybe people don't really think about when they say they're getting in a declutterer or an organizer. They maybe don't think about the psychological things and the habit side of stuff that you can actually help with as well.
So there's various things that I do. So the first stage is that we come in and I will organize and declutter. Well, no, so we declutter. So with the decluttering stage is deciding what stays and what goes. Then we organize the space. Then I help set up easy to manage systems that will help maintain, stop the buildup of clutter again. But one of the biggest things, and this is becoming more and more important, is I speak as much about changing purchasing behavior as I do about organizing, because if you want to maintain an organized space, you need to be aware of what you're buying and what you're bringing into the home. And if that doesn't change, then there will always be a buildup of clutter. And so, some of my clients have quite big shopping habits, and, the focus is on changing that before we can organize the space. And I've got lots of really good strategies that we talk about. And the other thing, so for example, with your wardrobe, if you have a wardrobe full of clothes, you should be aware of, one, what you have, and two, you should be wearing all of those clothes. Now, if you've got a lot of clothes, it might take you longer to get through them, but if you're aware of what you've got, then you can start to plan a strategy. And I use something called the hanger technique, where you hang everything in the wardrobe the wrong way round, sort of like facing out to you. And then every time you wear it, you put it back in the correct way. And then over a sort of a 3-month period, you can quickly see which clothes you're wearing and which ones you never choose. And then it's kind of questioning, well, why am I not wearing it? Maybe I should just try and wear it for the day and then make a decision. So it's really making sure, and this applies to everything in your home, that everything you have, you use it or you wear it. Otherwise, there's a question about why you have it.
Yeah, I think that's probably something that I should work on. But there's quite a few people jumping on and saying, yes, we need to talk to Tracy. Yes, we need to talk to her. But so what stage do people get to before they talk to you? And even, is it them that come to you? Because I know we've had discussions and you've said that so sometimes it's the children of elderly parents that come to you and say, my parents really need help. So how do you normally get engaged? How does it come about?
Well, I'll just briefly touch on the clients that I know maybe are interested in support for a member of the family who's maybe suffering from dementia or Alzheimer's. In that case, in the early stages, it tends to be the partner or the adult children who contact me, just saying that, things have got a little bit out of control because focuses have changed. And I'd really value some support to facilitate my mother or father being able to have that increased independence for as long as possible. So then I go in, and what we do then is that I usually meet with both parties. So the client, the dementia person suffering from dementia, plus the adult children, and we talk through how I work and how I can support them. And I think once they've met me, they can quickly see that it's not scary. I'm really there to add value. So that's kind of in that situation. But most people who want to work with me, and it's the person who needs the support who contacts me. So I always say to people, I have vouchers, but I don't recommend people buy them as a surprise gift. I think it's the person who needs that support. It's just better for them to ask, do they need it? Otherwise, there needs to be some kind of buy-in. Does that kind of have?
Definitely.
It's not a surprise gift you buy some, but no. If you ask them and they value the support, then and the other thing I do is that if I go into a home and there's several people living in the home, I only work with the things of the person who's contacted me. So the absent partner, we don't ever get rid of his things or her things. We might put a few things aside that we find along the way and get to speak to them about it, but we focus just on the belongings of the person who's made for contact.
Thank you. No, that does answer it. Thank you. I was just thinking that actually getting your vouchers when you've never had a conversation about that could be taken in a very wrong way.
Yeah, it doesn't work very well, and they often might not get used. And you know, I know I can add value, but the person needs to be ready because it is a personal service. That's why.
Yeah, and like we discussed, it's not just the physical aspect of it. If they're not going to buy into it and take it on board and have that change mentally as well, then it's sort of you're just going in and tidying it up. Next week they're going to be back in exactly that same position. Exactly,
and you know, for all of my clients, it's usually a very positive experience. So if I've gone to someone's house and started working with them, they will book more sessions. So I know that once I've met someone and we started working together, they can see the value of what we do. There's just a mystery of, usually if I tell people I'm a professional organizer, I get one of two reactions. So one, you instantly can see they're thinking about a space in their home that they need to deal with. Or, you know, secondly, it's like, oh, I need you to live with me permanently. You know, it's kind of that kind of reaction. So they say, oh, no, I don't need it. But you can see they're thinking that, yeah, I think my hallway's pretty cluttered, or I really got to get on and sort out the attic. So it's just, it's quite a funny reaction.
Yeah. Do you have a typical client that you could say it normally takes this long, or do you do just one-off things? Or does it completely depend?
I can tell people approximately how long it's going to take a room. What I can't anticipate until I start to work with someone is how much time it's going to take that person to want to let go of something. So I could, you know, do an entire room in 4 hours, and we fill up lots of bags, so we get rid of all the things that are no longer needed. We redistribute things that are displaced in the home. But for other clients, they may only be able to get rid of 1 or 2 things in 4 hours, and that is enough for them, and that is the right pace, because they need longer to buy into the process and just get used to that whole thing. And I really help people try and understand the reasons why they're feeling guilty or anxious about letting things go, and I can really support them with that, and we're going to talk it through and try and work out some strategies. And so some people, it just takes a lot longer, but they know that, but they're happy with the progress that they're making because that's right for them.
And one of the questions we did have, I will ask that one in a second, thank you, Neil, but and you briefly touched on it about not touching anyone else's stuff, but obviously cleaning out stuff, throwing stuff away, decluttering must cause some tension. Do you find that sometimes you are in that situation where you are sort of have to be a mediator between people? Or...
Oh yeah, I often find that people's perception of clutter in a home between a couple can be quite different. So, you know, most people think that the things that belong to them are of value, and the things that belong to their partner are maybe not so valuable, or maybe not not needed. There is a kind of generalization there. But I've often worked with a lot of couples, like together, where I've sort of, and they said that there's often been a lot of friction if they've tried to do things independently, just the two of them. But if I come in as the mediator and, you know, we just approach things in a different way, and I give each one of them specific jobs and we focus on completing the task, it just takes the friction completely away. Now, sometimes I have clients who contact me. It's often the female of the household who doesn't tell the partner that she's asked me to come round, and we maybe do 1 or 2 sessions together, and then the absent partner starts to notice things are changing and thinking, wow, this is great. And then they sort of, you know, say, well, actually, I've had a little bit of help. And then I often end up working with the partner who was a little bit skeptical in the beginning to either do a garage or a loft, or go through their wardrobes, you know, which is obviously quite a personal experience too. So sometimes people just need to see the results before they believe that it can happen. Because often people will say to me that, oh, their partner says, we're going to do it ourselves. And I'll say, that's fine. That's fine. I'm very happy to give you a bit of advice on how to approach that. But if in 6 months' time nothing has happened, please come back, and then we can try and just do 1 or 2 sessions and then see if the results move you forward. Because sometimes it's just starting the process that people get really motivated, and then they feel like they want to continue things on their own. So that can often have a good impact too.
Yeah. Neil's just put one of the questions that we had through on Instagram, which was, what are your favourite type of people or client to work with? What do you get most satisfaction from?
Oh, that's really interesting, Gon. Well, I do this job because I love people. I love the variety. Every single house I go into is different. For me, it's the point where what you do makes a difference. So sometimes it happens in the first session. Sometimes it happens in the 15th session. So we've been working together over a long period where you just see that they get it and things start to make a difference. So I've been back to previous clients' houses which were very cluttered, to find that they've completely redecorated. They've, you know, bought new furniture, and they've transformed the place completely. And just how they are, they're just so much happier. They feel so much more relaxed, and I can see how the space was before and then how it's evolved. And that's really quite special to me, because that I know then that the support that you provided has helped take them away from that original kind of being stuck and just not knowing where to start. And that's what I like. So it's more of a feeling really, rather than a specific kind of client. That, I mean, you know, my clients are all so different that, you know, I just work with so many different people. You know, it's so varied, but that makes it interesting. And also you learn so much with every client you go to. You learn something new, and I can bring the experience that I have from other clients to really benefit them in moving forward.
Thank you. And we did go through, I was just looking at the time, some of the sort of different areas that maybe milestones, if you would call them that people think, oh, now's the time that I need to sort something out. And some of these came up on some of the Instagram discussions that we were having. One that came up a lot, and I think actually it was after our chat with Louise Brennan a couple of months ago, was getting prepared for a baby. Mothers especially are like, I've got so much more stuff that needs to come into the home that is sort of essential for the baby. But they've already got a full home. So it's deciding then what is necessary and things, and that's possibly a stage where you can actually come in and give them some help and guidance with.
I've worked with a lot of people at various stages of pregnancies, and you know, so sometimes I come in when they're a couple and they're expecting their first baby, you know, and everything is beautifully ordered and they've got all this lovely space, and And then all the baby kit starts coming in, even just the core essentials, and it's just like, wow, where are we going to, where are we going to put all of this stuff? So I help them evolve their current space to see where's the most relevant place to keep things, and then talk about their routine. So obviously, I've got 2 children myself. It's a long time ago now, but I still know kind of like, if you were breastfeeding, you're going to spend a lot of time here. And the other thing is that when you have a baby, is you spend a lot more time at home. And then you start to notice how the home is organized or not organized. So it starts to become a much bigger focus. But then I've also supported people at the other end where they may be having their 3rd or 4th child, and, they've already got a lot of stuff from the other children, and they're just thinking, oh my goodness, I've got to pull out all the other stuff. So it's really helping. The transition, I think, from being a couple to having your first baby is quite big, to having a family house and suddenly having all this, little babies come with an awful lot of stuff, as I'm sure you know too. It's like, it's just, it's one of those things, isn't it? So it's just, they need a lot of support. Or sometimes people are having an elderly family member coming to stay and live with them. So it's getting prepared for that as well. So kind of, what can they bring with them? Where are they going to be? Creating space in your home for them to feel comfortable as well. So it's sort of at both ends of the scale.
Yeah. And then one of the other areas that obviously we're both part of St Albans businesses. So one thing that's come up a lot is people working from home or remotely, and having that separation between home and work, or it all just becoming one big mess, basically. One, you haven't got that work separation, which is sometimes really hard. Yeah. But also, it's just, where does your sort of home life end and work life start, and where is everything?
Yeah, it's a real challenge. I have quite a few of my clients who have young families and have that flexibility for working from home, but it does bring other challenges because, like you said, you're trying to relax and not relax, but you're kind of trying to focus on your work, and then you're looking around the living room and it's just surrounded by chaos. And it's quite hard to focus when there's so much chaos around you and other things that are trying to attract your attention away from what you're doing. So I sort of help a lot of my clients with time management, space management, how to run their time and have more focus. And that does mean that they need to either create a space where it's sort of screened off from home life, or they need to have systems in place to stop the distractions, really. But it can be quite challenging working from home.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. But I'd also say that like 95% of my clients need support with paperwork management. So it's either kind of going through all their historic paperwork and just getting back to point zero, or it's setting up systems to deal with ongoing paperwork, setting up a filing system, and then having daily habits in place to stop things getting out of control. And I think virtually every client I go to, I support them with some kind of paperwork management.
Yeah. Just from our point of view as TLC, sometimes we do get involved in is, so following the death of somebody, or following moving into a care home. Yeah. And sometimes that individual is still living in the original family home that has had 3 or 4 children grow up in it, a garage full of stuff, a loft full of stuff, bedrooms full of stuff, and that person is no longer around, or they've gone into a care home and actually have lost capacity, so they're not aware of that stuff anymore. And that's obviously a very difficult situation, because normally there would be sentimental value attached when, I'm sure you're going to every one of your clients, but this is also dealing with the grief as well, on top of perhaps the sentimental value and everything. are they a struggle for you? Are they sort of, do you like dealing with them in a way that it actually comes to a really good conclusion?
It's quite a challenging situation. I think with a lot of my clients, as they're getting older, one thing that I think comes from the level of trust that I build with the clients that I work with is that we can talk quite openly about a lot of subjects. So talking about the legacy that they leave for their children, maybe thinking about downsizing home when they still feel they have the energy to do that, and then have more freedom later in life with a more manageable home and, you know, more affordable home. So dealing with those possessions much earlier is a preferable option.
Yeah.
But when it's not, then I tend to try and work with their adult children, if they're living close by, or remotely if they're not, and we come up with a strategy. And, you know, often they might just come down sort of 2 or 3 times during the period I'm working with them, just to look at what we're sorting with. But I can do a lot of sorting and pick out what I think is valuable. But with these kind of clients, when they've been in the home for a long time, there's often things that they've buried away that are not in a logical place. So it just takes time to go through everything.
Yeah.
And you can't possibly know what is important, everything that's important to that person, but you can try your very best to pick out things that you feel will have sentimental value. And when I'm generally working with a client, sometimes we touch and show them the smallest thing, and, you know, to someone it might seem really insignificant, but through my experience I know that I need to ask about everything. But in that kind of situation, you just have to make a lot of assumptions and put things aside, and then you can keep in contact with the children if they're still around, sending photos through, having those kind of conversations so you can make some decisions. But yeah, it's not an easy situation, but it's a very valuable time to support a family.
Yeah.
As you know too, it's yeah, they really value the support that you can offer.
Yeah, it's difficult no matter what, and but sometimes there's things that you just can't be helped, so you've just got to make a horrible situation as best you can, really.
Yeah, and I think when someone's kept too many things and hasn't had that natural decluttering going on over the years, a lot of those things would have naturally gone anyway. It's just making sure that really important personal things are kind of kept aside just for someone to view if needed. And anything that I think is potentially of value, I just group together, and we agree a strategy on that.
Thank you. One thing that I wanted to know, if there are any other questions, just drop them in, please. But what do you think is the most? What do you feel is the most rewarding part of your job?
I think, that's quite interesting. I think it's the support, but not only the physical support, like in terms of kind of how I move around space and kind of how I organize things, but I think often it's that informal counselling almost that people really value, that they have an impartial ear to listen to how they're feeling about things, and not to be judgmental or find solutions, but sometimes just to listen and care. And I think that's something that's really a privilege when people share that information with you. I think that's what I like the most, I think.
And Neil has just said, so I'm guessing this is a comment on the article. It says, in the article you wrote, you touched on increased anxiety and well-being. So how do your clients say that they feel after you start off the process with them? And then he's just said, Eileen obviously raves about it because she said about it throughout.
Yeah. Well, I think when I first meet someone, they're feeling very anxious, they're feeling overwhelmed. They can often seem sort of very kind of sort of hyper almost, and just a bit scattered, then as we start to work together and clear the spaces, I see their decision making improve. I see their desire to be more sociable if they haven't had people around before improve. You know, suddenly they'll invite a neighbour around for coffee as we clear a space, and that's a big step for some people. But I just see them, they just see a whole, for a lot of people who just want to get organised, it's just a whole bunch of things just gone, wiped off their to-do list. So suddenly they think, I have got 1,000,001 things to do. I come in and work with them. We just sort each space, and it's just a huge relief to have that done and sorted, and for them to maintain it. And a lot of people ask me to teach them how to organise. They say that they're really happy to maintain a system, but I often coach people how to organise their space, and it's lovely when you go back and see that the systems that you've suggested and put into place actually work, and make a big difference to their day-to-day lives. So I really talk to people about what the pressure points in the house are, what's causing them stress during their day, and then we really try to work out how we can solve those through, one, reducing what they have, because having less stuff is less stuff to manage, which is just a simple one. It's just going to take you less time. And then looking about how they move around the house and how they use the space. So things are stored in a logical place where they expect to find them. So it saves them time, it saves them anxiety. And also, if one person in the house feels like they're having to do all of the jobs and manage the space, it also enables other people in the house, maybe the children or the partner, to know where everything's kept, so that person doesn't feel like they're constantly like, oh, where is this, where is that, and running around. So it really helps the household as a whole to have things organised in a logical manner.
Thank you. Is there anything else that you would like to add? Neil has said, can I invite him back on? So I think he will wrap it up.
Yeah.
But I'm guessing that means that's the end of his questions.
But
we will put all of your details in the comments section. I will do my best to transcribe the talk so we can get that up for people to read it. But is there anything? We'll obviously put your website and everything on there. Is there anything you add?
Well, I just wanted to say that, you know, if anyone's got any specific things that they're concerned about, then please just contact me. I'm always happy to chat with you and see if, you know, if I can support you, or, you know, for you to feel reassured that that is something I can help you with. And, you know, particular people, if they've got a parent who's suffering from dementia and they want to know how I can benefit that, then I'm really happy to chat with them.
Thank you. Neil's just asking me to invite him on, the three of us, but I can't.
Okay.
The two of us, I've just had a look. So if that's all right, Tracy, thank you very much for your time this evening. I will just grab Neil back on so that he can.
Well, thank you for having me. It's been really fun, and I hope that's helped people understand what we do.
Helpful.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Bye now. Bye.
Right. I'm just going to try and.
Oh. I think you've gone, but not me.
Oh, right. Let me cross that one, and then. Oh, Neil, I can't add you. I can't, you're not there now after asking. I have just got the little French bulldog run down here, though, if you can hear him snorting in the background. Sorry. I can't get Neil back on, I'm afraid, so I'm not sure what he wanted to say, but just a massive thank you to Tracy for this evening. Like Tracy said, she's more than happy to have a chat. We have often had a coffee with Tracy just to discuss some of the questions that our clients towards the end of their life have had, and she has some great tips and is just got such a nice way of talking to people, so I'm sure she will be happy to help, and we will drop her all her contact details in the comments. But thank you all for staying with us this evening.